why he's doing that is because of the fact that they're a major factor in why the country's as fucked up as it is now.
Facts.
The whole shitload of motherfuckers, including myself, didn't know it was 3 buildings that fell in 9/11. And I'm from New York. Just
peace. YouTube. What's up, YouTube people? This is Raw as L. This is my first live feed on YouTube. And to you, the conversation and the subject of common or exclusive sense. What is common or exclusive sense? Or are we dealing with nonsense? One of the main impacts that we see today is several people are weak to suggestion. They're weak to suggestion and vulnerable to appearance. They're vulnerable to appearance, weak to suggestion, and easily led to believe things that they cannot see. The first subject of nonsense and not exclusive of common sense that we're going to cover is the mask. When you place a mask over your face, you literally are rebreathing and recirculating carbon monoxide. The air that we breathe outside of a mask is fresh, pure oxygen, H2O, as a matter of fact. But when we put a mask over our face, we're breathing carbon monoxide. A mask is deemed appropriate for someone who actually has a sickness. For people who don't have a sickness to wear a mask, it only makes them vulnerable and breaks down their immune system because they're not breathing fully oxygenated air. You're not transferring the right amount of oxygen to your blood cells in the vessels and the areola vessels in your lungs. You're causing a stunted circulation of breathing when you have a mask. So that first subject is about the nonsense that people portray with putting a mask on their face. It's pure nonsense, especially if you don't have a sickness. Another thing that people do that's completely fucking nonsense is if you're in a car by yourself and you have on a mask and you're by yourself, it's pointless. It's pointless because you're the only person in the car. Nobody else is going to get sick from you except you. The next subject we'd like to discuss when it refers to nonsense, stupidity, pure ignorance, the weakness to suggestion, social distancing. When someone sneezes, the vapors leave the mouth at least 100 miles per hour. 6 feet is not fair protection from any type of infection or contagion that may be referred to as airborne. It's nonsense. Pure fucking nonsense. If you were to wear one of these masks that they require people to wear that covers your face from this point on, and I had a handful of dust, and if I threw this dust at you, the dust would literally fall through the crevices in your mask. That makes your mask fucking pointless. It's nonsense. More nonsense, not common sense. Even painters have masks that are more protective than the masks that people are walking around with. To add further foundation to what I'm saying, scientists have proven that a germ cannot exist any longer outside of its incubation chamber or body or host longer than 20 seconds. You can't go into a public place and touch a countertop and all of a sudden be infected by a cold. After 20 seconds, the germ no longer can sustain and be alive. Now, if you lick a toilet seat, you can become sick. You might even catch some very serious shit. But you're not going to come sick over just a cold. The next topic of pure fucking nonsense. The black man who was attacked and killed by a policy enforcer. The truth of the word black means pale. The etymological meaning of the word black literally means pale, blank, blanca. My torn up tank top. Well, this is black, right? But my skin, the hue of my skin, the sun is shining through the fucking window. The sun is shining on my skin. It literally is not the same color as the fucking tank top. Therefore, I'm not black. The actual meaning of the word black, the original meaning of the word black, we're still on the subject of common sense. We haven't left that topic. The actual meaning of the word black. And what I'm doing is I'm looking on the phone. It's a small computer that everyone has in their possession. But if I were to look up the word black, the etymology of the word black, Black's Law Dictionary. In Black's Law Dictionary, the definition of the word black and here it is. Black. Blake. Absolutely dark, absorbing all light. The color of soot or coal. My tank top is the color of soot or coal. From Proto-Germanic, blackas, burned. Sourced also of Old Norse, blacker or dark. Old High German, black, black. Swedish black ink, Swedish or Dutch blackened to burn. From bleg, to burn, to gleam, to shine, to flash. Also from the root blank, blank, pale. It's an adjective. It describes the color of something, but it doesn't describe the actual hue of skin. The sun is shining through the fucking window. It is not absorbing light in my skin. My brown skin, my brown copper tone skin, which is the same color of a penny, is reflecting light. It's the opposite of the definition of the word black. A black man was supposedly killed by a policy enforcer. He put his knee on the back of this man's neck. And then the year before that, a black man was shot several times. And then the month before that, or a week before that, a black man was shot while jogging. And then another year before that, another black man was shot. But all throughout that entire year, several black men were shooting other black men. All throughout that entire year, we were creating videos and entertainment that actually celebrated and glorified the ability to kill so-called black men. The word black, the usual Old English word for black was swart. According to OED, Old English Dictionary, in medieval times, it is often whether black means black or dark or pale, colorless, wan, or livid. It's an adjective. An adjective describes a thing. I am of a people. I'm a human being. I'm not a black tank top. Obviously, unless you're colorblind, you can see there's a significant contrast of detail in the color or hue of my skin versus the color and hue of the tank top I have on. You see, the tank top is the actual color black. For those who are smart enough and intelligent enough to understand, and overstand that. But my skin is copper tone. It's brown. When you think of the word copper tone or brown, you have to understand that there's also a connection with the definition of what an American actually is. An American originally in 1570, 1570, an American originally, which means the first one, the beginning of everything. I didn't make this up. It's on Etymology Dictionary online. One of the Aboriginal peoples discovered in the Western Hemisphere by Europeans. Here, so you can read it for your fucking self. It says one of the original Aboriginal peoples discovered in the Western Hemisphere by the Europeans from modern Latin Americanus. Now, the original sense is now Native Americans. The sense of a resident of North America of European, only originally British descent, came about in 1765. So here we have 195 years later, they adjusted the definition. They adjusted the original meaning of something that never changed, from the Americans being the original copper-toned Aboriginal people who were in the Western Hemisphere, here, this land that people call North, Central, and South Americas. So when a so-called black man who identifies as a black man says he has rights, you do not. Because black has no nation. It has no connection to land. It has no etymological origin other than it being a description of a thing that is not alive. It is a material description, a layer of a description. I'm not worried about what somebody may refer or think of me. This is something that anybody can read, and if you choose to ignore it, you're cognitively dissonant, and that's fine. It's free will. I'm an avid fan of free will. I'm more like a humanist, if you want to see it that way. But one thing I do know is you can't change the origin of the meaning of something. It never loses its meaning. Sky is always the fucking sky. The ground is always the goddamn ground. As long as you exist in the third dimension on this life in a physical body, you are where you fucking are. The truth is what it is. So here you have a so-called self-identified black man who has been killed by a policy enforcer. The people want justice. They want some type of remedy. So their reaction is to riot and to destroy policy enforcers' vehicles. Okay, that makes sense. Whatever. It doesn't change anything. Dred Scott versus Sanford was an old case in the 19th century. Specifically stated that any human being of African descent can never be an American citizen, a United States citizen to be more specific. A United States citizen is a part and parcel citizen of the United States. The United States is literally located in the District of Columbia. That's a part of Uniform Commercial Code. That's how they perform commerce globally on this planet, the Uniform Commercial Code. If the United States is located specifically in the District of Columbia within a 10-mile radius, that means that every other United States citizen is property of the United States. But the actual physical land, North America, it is what it is. Every other business and every other state that is attached to the United States is simply a building called the State Department. And only through consent of the people do they consider the physical land, the soil, the ground. It always was the ground. They consider that as the United States. But unfortunately, the ideal word, the United States, is simply just a corporation, which makes every United States citizen a product of that corporation, incorporated with the birth certificate. A black man is murdered self-identified black man is murdered by a European policy enforcer. He never had any rights to begin with. He was never a United States citizen to begin with. It was a privilege given. And at any given time, a state representative can take those privileges away should you choose to identify as African American, colored, Negro, black. You see, these identities strip away the person's or the human being's connection to their original status, their original beginning. Well, I'm talking about blood in my fucking veins. That's what I'm talking about. The blood in your fucking veins never changes. It goes from your goddamn grandmother to your great-grandmother, through your granddaddy's nuts, through your great-grandfather's nuts. It never changes. This blood that runs through my veins is the same fucking blood that's been in people's veins from 68,000 years ago. That never changed, or else I would cease to exist. It's based on the principality of sperm and egg, DNA. You see, the DNA strands are always carried on to the next life form. Well, this is the proof that makes us indigenous. That's why I'm explaining that for those who may think why I'm going around and about that topic. Your DNA never changes. Because your DNA never changes, your DNA was never black. Your DNA was always from an origin, a location, a central stream of life, if you want to consider it that way. The fucked up thing about this is an action called connotation is what most people perform when they choose to change the usage and the meaning of a word over time. It can happen over 100 years, 50 years, 5 years, 10 years, 5 fucking minutes. The term African American came out in 1988. Jesse Jackson created that bullshit. You see, there's 55 countries in Africa, maybe more. Most people who are from Africa specifically identify a country that they actually come from. They never seem to call themselves just African. They will either identify themselves as a Kenyan from Africa, an Egyptian from Africa, a Ghanaian from Africa. If you can't identify which African country you come from, how can you be African American? There is no country called African. That's just the truth. That's not some shit that I'm making up. It's the fucking truth. Colored. Well, you see, the back of my phone is colored. Even the case was colored flat black. The color is fading. The word colored is a description. Negro. Negro is Latin. It describes black. Not black person, but the color black. Why, gee, this curtain behind me is black. It's negro. Noir in some languages. Black is a misnomer. It does not describe the human being. A misnomer means a mislabel. Something that does not describe what it actually is. When a human being says, I'm black, here's my driver's license, what you're literally saying is, I don't exist, I'm committing a misdemeanor, I have no rights, they're privileges, and I want to perform commerce with you. I want you to take my driver's license and acknowledge that I'm not a United States citizen and put me through the works or recourse of the law. Now, I'm not saying that as soon as you get approached by a policy enforcer, you saying that you're not black is going to stop anything. There has to be a solution to what I'm saying, correct? What I am saying is if you choose to identify yourself as something that you are not, you've already performed the action of a misdemeanor. What I am saying is that the case that was already adjudicated on, Dred Scott versus Sanford, they already decided that you're not going to ever be a United States citizen. The only people who can be United States citizens are of European descent, or they're from the Marinara Islands, or they're from Guam, or they were born in the District of Columbia, where the United States is located. What I am saying is that black people don't have a nation. The United Nations doesn't recognize blacks. So if the United Nations doesn't recognize blacks, then the U.S. district courts don't recognize blacks, because the United States of America, a corporation that has a seat with the United Nations, because it is a nation in its own, doesn't recognize blacks. So taking a man's life is just a transaction. Taking a melanated man's life is just a transaction. A lot of us don't get that. A lot of us earnestly believe that marching and protesting and holding up signs that say some shit is going to stop anything. It's not going to stop anything. It's not going to bring about remedy. It's not going to change the circumstances. They will still kill melanated men who look like me. Well, I don't identify as black. I know for a fact that I'm not black. I'm sorry. Not sorry, motherfucker. I know for a fact that I'm a Moor, a descendant of Moabites. Yeah. I didn't want to begin this live feed with a fez on, but there it is. I know who I am. I know that I am that I am. I know where I come from. But it's not always about the fez, because a fez doesn't prove to anybody except for yourself. What you know and what they demonstrate out in the environments of our public are at least 4 to 5 different things. I could express this all day, that I know I'm not black. But you've been so brainwashed that you don't have any other way to see me reasonably and to describe me reasonably as black. Even though apparently you do have the intelligence to display common sense exclusively for the benefit of logic. The only type of remedy that can come from a self-identified black man who has been murdered by a European who is a United States citizen who is attached to the United States would be that maybe that policy enforcers fired, put on administrative leave. Maybe they'll move to another state, probably get transferred to another department. It's pretty much the same that will go on with any parish or religious infrastructure when you have a bishop, a pope, a minister, a reverend, an archbishop molesting a child. They simply get transferred. It's exclusive sense to know that you're not black. It's not common. Not all of us can perceive the reality of what I'm saying. Most of us find it fucked up and very difficult to interpret what I'm saying and then apply it logically. You got to be honest with your fucking self. You got to be able to look in the mirror and say, wait a minute, I'm not black. My tank top's black. I'm not. With that said, we've covered mask. We've covered self-identifying yourself as a descriptive adjective. The benefit of having a nation. The benefit of being sovereign. If you don't want to become a Moor, don't become a Moor. Fuck, it means shit to me. The ideal is to uplift humanity. That's what we say we want to do. But humanity literally is the ego of humans. You cannot uplift an ego. It uplifts itself. Humanity. The etymological meaning of the word humanity. Kindness, graciousness, politeness, consideration for others. Stop. That was from the 14th century. That's the original meaning of humanity. Be kind, be considerate. That's all. Uplift being kind, uplift being considerate. That's all. The rest of the Moorish nation has jack shit to do with being kind and being considerate. The rest of the Moorish nation, as a civic organization, is about putting the law into action. Well, what the fuck do I mean? We have a treaty. It's the Treaty of Peace and Friendship that we have. We have a treaty that's congressionally recognized by the Library of Congress, by the House of Representatives, by the United States government, by the United States of the operative word for being apart from, America. We have a treaty that's recognized by these motherfuckers, right? What am I talking about? This treaty that we have. This is a copy of the actual treaty that's in the Archives Department, United States Copyright Office as well. The National Archives and Records Administration Department. This Treaty of Peace and Friendship that we have, and it's bonded, it has the ribbon. This is just documentation. This means jack shit if I don't know how to activate it, to enforce it. It means jack shit if you don't know how to explain it. It literally doesn't mean a goddamn thing. There's better interpretations of this, but we have this copy for purposes of lawful use as well. It specifically states several articles of how we are supposed to do commerce with the United States and all of its federal corporations. It basically describes what we're supposed to do. This is what we're supposed to follow as Moors of a Moorish nation. Here's what's fucked up. You can't enforce that for a black person. You can't enforce that treaty because there's over 20 some odd articles in that treaty that state if a United States citizen kills or harms a Moor, the punishment is imprisonment or death, or probably both. But you can't enforce that if you're a black person. If you self-identify as a black person, you cannot enforce that treaty. Black is a misnomer. It actually leaves you as a ward of state, property of the state, state property. Person literally means commonwealth or state in law language. That's what it means. I don't want to be an attorney because I don't want a title of an esquire. Well, that's a violation of the Constitution, specifically the 13th Amendment. So I don't want to become an attorney. They practice the law. I exist. I am the law. I'm the length, the angle, and the width of existence. And how I govern myself is in sovereignty. There's no such thing as a sovereign citizen. Those two words can't exist. A citizen is property of the state. A sovereign owns and operates themselves as their own independent government. Government meaning to control your mind. We could go on and on all day about that shit. I could break down some fucking words and break down this part of the word and that part of the word. Who gives a fuck? I do. I'll read it. I'll figure it out. You can do it on your own accord. The truth still remains. Black people don't have a treaty. Black people do not have a nation. There's no country called black anywhere except for the Black Sea. There's no people in the Black Sea. motherfuckers. We want justice. Justice means death. Oh, they've changed the meaning of the word justice over the course of a century or two. But justice literally means the exercise of authority and vindication of right by assigning reward or punishment. The quality of being fair and just, moral soundness. That's mid 12th century, right? Now in the 11th century, from Latin justitia, righteousness, equity, from justus, upright or just, as an adjective. Justice is the end of government. It is the end of a civil society. I want to conclude this show on common sense today with y'all. Thank you for your time. I need to go get me something to fucking eat because common sense is telling me that I'm goddamn hungry. Thank you for watching. It's time for me to leave this motherfucker. I don't drag shit out. Peace. Yeah, in the goddamn screen. Fuck it.